Hey, good morning, everybody. Trendy John here from Simpler Trading. Today is the 7th of September, 2025. I am going to narrate and get this ready for this week's broad market analysis. We are looking at September the 7th through the 12th. So, futures are opening tonight. And if you like futures, right at the end of this video or towards the end of this video is when I go over the ES, the NASDAQ, and Bitcoin. But there are obviously lots of things that I cover here, and I want to get through it as soon as possible so that you guys can enjoy this beautiful Sunday. First, I ask very kindly if you would just hit that like button. And if you have any comments or any suggestions of anything that you would like to see, just bring those up in the comment section. Let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to be looking at this week is going to be the US economic calendar. I use this, it's free. You guys can see the URL right here. It just works for me. And the only thing that I'm really concentrating on overall is, these events can bring volatility into the market. The idea is that we are already identifying levels where we want to get long or short. So in essence, these things really help us, right? Nobody really likes a boring sort of slow market. So this is why we pay attention to these catalysts. On Monday, we have consumer credit coming in at 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern. So 1 hour before the close, we may get a little bit of volatility. On Tuesday, you guys can see we have NFIB optimism index. This is way before the market even opens. Not concerned about this. And then on Wednesday, things start to get a little bit more interesting. We have the producer price index, core PPI year over year. And then on Thursday, consumer price index with CPI, and then initial jobless claims and monthly US federal budget. On Friday, pretty quiet consumer sentiment coming in at 10 a.m. So when I look at this, I think to myself that most likely the trend kind of plays out on Monday and Tuesday, and we'll get into the charts and talk about that. And then the volatility could come in around Wednesday and Thursday timeframe. After U.S. economic calendar, I want to go ahead and take a look at our earnings coming up. And this is our room, by the way. This is our platform. It's really nice, pretty simple. We have our alerts that come through API. So we are leading out there in this. That basically means that as soon as I take a trade, my Thinkorswim sends that alert into the room for proof of concept so that you guys can see that I'm putting my money where my mouth is, which is really nice. It's sent there within milliseconds, which is really neat. And then down here is your main chat. And then over here, we obviously have all these titles in here. And this is where we're live. So we're sharing our screens, Melissa and I, and everyone can kind of follow along with the education and see all of this at one time. So a nice one-stop shop, if you will, here at Simpler Trading. So come out and join us. It's only $7 for an entire month, which is absolutely insane if you ask me. All right, so Earning Whispers. I like to use these guys. I've been following them for many, many years, out here on X. And this helps me as well because these are catalysts, right? And I love to trade, into earnings. Matter of fact, I took our last week, I did AVGO. Now, I did this personally because, I have a class on how to trade into earnings. And, some of these things I like to do in my private account, but AVGO, 1,300%. I bought these things at $1, sold at 19 or 20. And then I had some 350 calls for several weeks out as well. Those went up almost 1,000%. It was just an astronomical. I mean, it was an awesome move that really helped me out and helped my account out this past week. But anyways, so what's coming up this week? You guys can see here. I'll tell you what, I'm interested in possibly trading into earnings is going to be Oracle. And then as we move over to Wednesday, Chewy. And then as we move over into Thursday is going to be Adobe and then possibly Vera Bradley. I need to take a look at these charts. That's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names. So if you're interested in what I'm going to trade, come and check it out. We'll talk about it. Just bring it up in the room and I'll be happy to discuss that with you. The next thing that we're going to look at, which I find very important, is the bigger picture. So SPY on the bigger picture means I'm looking at quarterly candles, and this really has helped me keep this account positive for this year, is just paying attention to the bigger time frame. Not a lot of people like to put their concentration here, but I promise you, if you can just take your methodology and apply it to the bigger time frames, it'll keep you out of the noise when things start to get a little weird, and it gets just there's just a lot of negative sentiment when we have pullbacks, I notice. But when you're looking at these bigger charts, you understand that it's just needed at some of these points of breakdown, if you will. Far as notes go this week for the SPY, a new high was established this past week. The quarter candle is still bullish, but extended from the 9 EMA. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and draw out here. This is the 9 EMA. The extension is basically, air between here. And it's pretty big. Like if we were to take that same, and what you could do is you could draw let's just do this. We're going to draw this arrow, and you can copy these on Thinkorswim by clicking on them and then hitting spacebar. And what I usually do is I'll come over and get an idea of what the average range is when prices break out above the cloud. So for example, if I take this same arrow, you can see here that I could have been saying the same thing back here, but prices continue to rise before we even pulled back to test the EMA. So when I look at this and I tell you that we're extended, just know that it can and has been extending more than what a lot of people think could continue to happen. All right. So it's okay. It's within a range where we could see more extension to the upside. We could extend and continue to extend until we hit my 2025 projection, which is right around the corner, honestly. So just keep those things in mind. Okay. The other thing that I want to talk about is because we made a new high, the bullish channel changes. All right, and you'll notice that the bullish channel is between 612 and 587. Note that the 9 EMA is also confluent with the golden pocket. The golden pocket has really been an amazing add into our daily trading by using the Fibonacci's, and not only on a higher time frame, but even on the smaller time frames, it works so well. It's just a technical level that you combine the 50 and 618, and a lot of traders love to use it, and it's really helped us out. Matter of fact, it really helped out on Friday where I got long in the futures, and I'll show you that chart here a little bit later. So 9 EMA is confluent. We have confluence. We have a really big candle there. So in the event, if the market decides to pull back and we have something ugly leading into the last quarter of the year and we're looking for a buying opportunity, I really like this area down here. I'm not saying that we're hitting it anytime soon, but if we were to come back to there, I would want to take a nice position in this area. Okay. Now, please also understand that overall, the past 4 weeks look pretty controlled, if you ask me. And I'm going to show you the weekly here in a second, with no real breakout or breakdown. Yes, we're making highs, but it just looks really controlled. 23 days until this quarterly candle closes. So although it's super bullish right now, it can change. A lot of things can change very quickly, as you all know. The next chart that I want to share with you guys is going to be the weekly. So I'm just going to hit this arrow right here, and I have a video in the room on how you set up this chart specifically so that you can just hit this arrow and go to your favorite time frames, okay? And if you don't know how to do that, please make sure you watch that video. Over here on the weekly, you'll notice that these are the same levels we used for the last couple weeks. And we had the over under here, and notice that we just kind of broke down underneath. We found buyers right here at the inside and up level. Buyers did show up. Again, we did make a new high at 652 and 21 cents. I have some extension targets by using Fibonacci extensions up here, 654 by 672. And then again, if we were to break down, we have that bullish channel just a little bit lower below price. A couple things I want to take from the weekly right now. If we zoom in, we have a inside and up candle right here. So basically a pivot, if you will. and we got a green arrow. Not all green arrows mean that price is going to continue up, but you'll see, I mean, just using this year, every green arrow was preceded by the market continuing to move up. Again, not a guarantee, but please take note, we did get a green arrow from last week. So that is a bullish signal. Okay. The next thing that I would tell you looking at this is overall, when looking at the banners from your yearly, your monthly, and your weekly using Trendy Fibonacci, we're all green. So the trend is green. I'm looking at buying the dip this week at levels that are on my charts. Okay. Looking at the QQQ, let's go ahead to the bigger picture. Wait, before I move on, so I said something about controlled. So basically, all I'm saying is you can put a box around this just like that. And you'll see that once we came in here, yes, we're making highs, but it's really slow. We keep getting the bigger dips to the downside. And really, it's just a channel that's sideways. If you were to put a box around this, if for some reason we continue to stay in that box, the idea for me, what I like to say is when you're higher up on the curve or higher towards the top of that box, be careful as we could see it pull back down. And if we come lower towards the bottom of the box, this is where I'm looking to get long. Pretty straightforward stuff, but I just want you to see that although we keep making highs and it feels really bullish, to me, when I look at this, we haven't done a whole lot. Okay, so it feels a little controlled, if you will. Almost as if the QQQ needs to make a high, and we'll get to that here in a second as well. So on the quarterly, this is what it looks like. Same thing. You'll notice that this is looking bullish. I'm saying this week, as long as we can stay above 573.96, call it 574, that I do believe that we're going to make a new all-time high and possibly this week. My extension targets to the upside are 588, 594, 608. Other than that, our bull channel stays the same at 540 by 514. And just like the SPY, you're looking at the QQQ9 EMA that is confluent with the golden pocket. We have a lot of good confluence there. And if prices were to come back there, and just like the SPY I said, I'm not saying they will, but if they do, I really like this as a shot to get super long for me. Okay. I say super long. Basically, what I'm saying is my allocation would be bigger down in this area. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and now move on to the smaller time frame, which is your weekly right here. All right, so when looking at this, you could see the same thing, that we're just kind of going sideways in this channel. Not a whole lot has happened, but we are and above 61.8% or the golden Fibonacci of the high. And when we do that, I'm looking for the 88.7. Well, we've actually up here at the top hit the 88.7 already. So instead of me saying, you know, a 95% probability we make a new all-time high, I want to keep it at this. If we can hold 574, I believe we can see a new all-time high. But we do, once we get above around 580, if we get above 580, I'm looking at a 95% probability that we make a new all-time high. And again, guys, this is just based off of my technicals. This is not financial advice to put all of, you know, the kitchen sink behind that idea. Again, it's just the levels that I teach. Okay. Moving on down, you'll notice on the weekly, same thing, guys. We've had green arrows and they've continued to work very well, but we do not have a green arrow this past week. But my overall sentiment on the SPY, I'm actually a little undecided. I'm neutral, just like the candles look. On the QQQ, I'm more bullish, but I'm starting to feel like is it more technical or is it more, you know, gut? And so I want to be careful when I say that. So let's just look at price. Price is king. Again, I'm bullish above 574. And when I come over on SPY, I'm bullish because of the inside and up formation, the green arrows, but I also feel a bit neutral. And I'll show you that on the ES futures towards the end of this video. The next thing that I want to go over with you is going to be the dollar. So in Thinkorswim, you actually do the dollar sign and then DXY, and then these two will pop up for you. I go with the bottom one here. This is the one that I've been, you know, putting my chart on. And it really has helped me as well with everything else that I'm showing you to be on the right side of the market most of the time. You'll notice that when the dollar came into our support here, it pushed to the upside, and that's when I start to be careful in my portfolio. But, far as 98.20, this has been our number for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And I've said specifically, if we get above that, I want to be a little bit cautious being long in the market. But as long as we're staying below it, I do believe that the market can continue to move to the upside. There is a potential we roll over and the dollar continues to move down towards the 96 to 94 level. If it does that, I still believe that we continue to march up towards my 2025 projections in the SPY and in the ES futures and so forth. Okay. This cloud is resistance until proven otherwise. And a lot like the market, I feel like we're just kind of controlled here. It's sideways, and everybody's looking for whether we get that big breakout or breakdown in a lot of different charts. So please be patient, but also don't be scared to execute as long as you got really good levels. And that's what we really hone in on in the trendy room. Again, guys, a quick reminder in the middle of this video, please hit the like button. I really, really appreciate it, just so that I know that you appreciate this video as well, and that my time during Sunday is going to help you out in your trading. If you know anybody that's out there that needs help or guidance, please share this video with them, share my link with them so that they can get the education they're probably looking for. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at the 10-year Treasury now. The 10-year, one thing that I will say is the TNX is starting to move down towards the levels that I've been looking for. I took a position, we'll talk about it real quick. I don't need to make a separate video or anything like that on it. But TNX is doing what I expected it to do. It's just trading between two zones. And at the end of the day, I'm not really concerned unless it gets above this red zone or if we get down here. Okay. So I did take a position, all right, in TLT. All right, and it's doing pretty well already, but there's a couple things that I wanted to bring up to you guys on the TLT position. From a daily perspective, it's really interesting because it got back over the 200 SMA, and we really took this perfectly. We bought it down here, and then we gapped up, and so the positions I bought into 2027. That's option positions. I love taking leap trades as well. I spoke about this or sent it out on my social media, which was X, and I said, one thing I noticed here is the last 3 times that we got, or at least the last 2 times that we got above the 200 SMA, it was quickly rejected with some force. So I talked about the idea of a possible lotto here, like into the next 2 weeks, that this could also dump. But at the same time, what I've noticed about TLT is many traders with lots of experience or not a lot of experience, doesn't really matter, right? Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But my thought process in this trade was that what I'm seeing is a lot of people trying to time this bad boy, but I need to see, for me, I wanted to see the TNX starting to roll over, and then I wanted to start getting into my position. And that's exactly what I did. And you guys can see here, it's still a pretty small position. I think I only put $1,000 into this because, and I want to go over this really quick, is that we have the trendy yearly edges here. And these are really, really important especially from a bullish standpoint. If we start to bid over the yearly edge, this could be a sign that we could be moving up towards the top edge into 2026, 2027. So what I need to see is a quarterly close above this blue line here. And then I feel really good that we could at least move up towards 94, and then my target being a 100. And again, I kind of protected myself. I bought the 88 calls. I shouldn't say protect myself because you can buy at the money or in the money or out of the money and still be wrong. But that's what I did. I just wanted to give myself a little bit higher delta on this trade. And I'll add into this position, what I'd like to do is buy some out of the money calls. And I love doing this because a lot of times when I'm right, the out of the monies will pay for the entire position, or the higher delta will pay for the entire position. So I'll take off the higher deltas, I'll take some of the out of the monies off, and then I'll just let the rest ride, hopefully, ride until expiration. Sometimes I have a hard time with that, especially when you're getting up to 500 or 1,000% or something like that on your options. All right. So, yeah. So, anyways, I just want to go over TLT. That was kind of like off the cuff there. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the skew. So, the skew is really important. This is an indicator developed by the Chicago Board that measures perceived tail risk. All right, in the market, and traders might use this to kind of adjust their portfolios. That's what I do. One might consider buying protective options or puts when the skew is rising up towards these red lines, and one may be looking at getting long or risk on when we're down in the green levels. Okay, and so that's what's going on when we look at this chart. I make it really simple. And when I come over to the weekly, so we always look at it from a weekly perspective. What's really interesting is that the skew looks just like the rest of the market. This is, guys, I'm telling you, I brought this up last week. This is really strange. We're usually the best time to be a trader in the market, at least I think, is the easier time to be a trader in the market is when this is skewed to the higher end or skewed to the lower end, because what this demonstrates is that up here we have a lot of euphoria, and down here we have a lot of fear. And I like to take advantage of those from my standpoint. If you think about it, when we have euphoria, your puts are cheaper, right? You're not waiting to the last minute to buy puts. And when you come down here into fear, your calls are cheaper. So I like to take advantage of that. And it's easy to talk about, and it probably sounds easy when you hear me saying it, but I promise you that the majority of people do not buy puts up here, and the majority of people do not buy calls down here. Okay, they'll talk about it all day long, but most people do not do that. So we want to have a pulse on this, and what I'm seeing is just completely sideways. So again, kind of strange behavior. This is not normal. If you go back and you look for a very long period of time, you'll notice it kind of looks like an EKG, right? This is where volatility is. So right now, it's just kind of really choppy. And everybody, as I said, that's kind of like the tone. I think that would be my title of my video this week would be breakout or breakdown, right? Which one's coming? I think we'll know pretty soon. Um, yeah, I think we'll know pretty soon. Okay. Now, the way that this is looking is almost like if you were to look at it just from chart perspective, you're making lower highs, higher lows. So again, sideways. But at the moment, if we were to take out this low here, then we are definitely getting some fear in the market. And so that could position us well to take advantage of that as the market were to drop into some levels where we could buy. Okay. So anyways, skew again is at 148. Overall, my sentiment here is just neutral. All right, kind of sitting in the waiting place, if you will. The next thing that I want to look at is going to be the fear and greed. Okay, so when we're looking at the fear and greed, we'll notice that it is sitting at 53. Now it says 60 last week, but when I last did this, it was like 64. So it's come down 11 points, which actually surprises me, right? I almost thought that we would be on the greed side again because we made a new high. It's almost like a perfect situation for bulls. It's like instead of being extremely greedy and the market's going up, they're saying it's neutral, which I'm actually a little confused. But when you look at all the charts and they're basically channeled, or like I said, it almost feels controlled. Everything feels like it's controlled at the moment, and there's some weird things maybe going on that I can't explain. And it's really not, I just don't care to explain, right? Even if I knew, because price is king. So just know that everything is really neutral right now and kind of choppy. Okay. All right, the next thing that I'm going to be looking at, let's go ahead and X out of that, is going to be the ES futures. Let's go ahead and come up here. We're going to do /ES, and we're going to start with the weekly. And this is where things look a little bit different. right, than your SPY chart. And this is why I said I'm neutral for this week. Look at this candle, right? You could tell there's a big topping wick, there's a big lower wick. So we're just kind of stuck in the middle. The one thing that we want to take away from this is that we ended the week as an inside week. And this week, just like last week, we have an over under. These over unders are just kind of to quickly let you know that as soon as we pop over that, that's bullish for me. As soon as we pop under that, that is caution for me to possibly downside. I don't want to say bearish because it's a bullish market, but it could be a bearish play, like, temporarily, until we get to some levels where I would want to buy. All right. So once we go above this line, we're inside and up on the formation. Once we go below this line, we are inside and down on the formation. So please take that into consideration. We did hit our target up here at 65.36. That was a nice one. And we came down and hit our 9 EMA. So all things are looking great as far as the ES futures go. I like that we hit both levels. And again, it just kind of ended up neutral for the week. As we roll on and look at the daily, this is where I have triggers. I write on here trigger long, resistance. Usually I have a trigger short, but again, it's not a bearish market, so I'm not trying to get overly biased to the short side. I don't have a problem coming into the market with some shorts. Matter of fact, I capitalized very well on SPX and SPY shorts when we came into the market this past week. That worked out really well for me. But overall, again, I don't really want to be buying puts unless that skew and everything else kind of rises a little bit higher. Then I'll put on a serious put position. But for right now, they're just like small speculative type trades. When things are higher, buy them because they're cheaper kind of feel. Okay. So that's what's going on here. We have a resistance level. I'm just using the weekly edge. And down here, I'm using some Fibonacci and some structure for the trigger longs. But inside the room, if you have a question about that, I'll love to talk about it. But we don't just blindly take these levels. We have different things that we look at when price gets there. Okay. The 4-hour chart, I like to do this because it really like cleans it up for you. We're looking at my indicators, the upper weekly edge, the lower weekly edge, both of them indicating where price is supported and or rejection. And when price gets there, we teach how to trade these zones or these areas around the weekly edges. Just know that we closed on Friday towards the top of them. What you could see is that we pop in here, and if we start to come back down, this is where we could look to temporarily get short, and prices could come all the way back to here, and this is where I'd expect it to bounce. Bullish if we stay above this line, right? Then I'm looking to buy the dip. Caution if we get close to here and we start to break down, and then bullish if we were to drop into here. But again, there's a strategy of how I approach that once we get there. Okay. Let's go ahead now and look at well, before I do that, I told you about the golden pocket. This is our so we have intraday charts that I never go over on in the broad market analysis. Please join us in the room 1 hour and a half before the market opens. I specifically go over exactly how I find all these levels, and we do it from a top-down approach. This was our blueprint for this past week. I got long here on Tuesday. I got out of the trade. I made nice money. And then here, I got long on Friday. I also made money there. But this was the golden pocket of the range that I anchored my Fibonacci's on. And you can see it worked really, really well. So I just want to show you what those fibs look like from here, and that's what it was. Okay, so this is tonight. This is our blueprint going into Sunday. So I have my liquidity chop levels, I have the golden pocket, and we potentially could move to 65.22, 6,500 to 65.22, overnight if we get the bounce on the open. Okay, let's go ahead now and get into the NASDAQ. So right here, same thing. We're going to go to the weekly, and you'll notice here that I put some fibs on here. We're at the 618. If we could stay above 23,670, I'm bullish. If we start to break down below 23,540, I'm cautious. It's basically looking for chop. I like on the weekly that we came into the 9 EMA. We held that support. I do think if we stay above the 618, we'll see 23,822 and then 23,950. If we could take out 23,950, I believe we have a 95% probability of making an all-time high this week, especially if it happens early in the week. Okay. So now let's move on to the daily. Same thing. You're going to notice that I have triggers and I also have resistance level. You could pause this video. You could check out these levels on your chart and let me know how well they do. But if you're in the room, again, this is not a blind trade. This is something that we're just taking note of using structure and Fibonacci's. When price gets there, we'll look at other factors to determine whether or not I want to get long or short. On the 4 hour, the thing to notice here is we have the lower weekly edge. We have a zone around that. It's tied in really nicely with some really strong candles here. And over here, we have the upper weekly edge. This is going to be your resistance. And then we have an upper monthly edge that also takes into account some structure over here. So again, still up against, resistance here in the NASDAQ. And not until we make it above those higher time frame levels that I believe we can make an all-time high. And other than that, that's all I have for the ES and the NASDAQ. Now let's break it down into Bitcoin. So last week, the tone for Bitcoin for me, you guys know I'm a long-term investor. I'm not trying to trade in and out. It's just proved to, it's fun if you like to do that kind of stuff. But for me personally, this is a long-term trade for me. My cost basis for this year is around, I think it's 78 or 80, something like that. And it's working out well. My 2025 projection is 138 by 167. My concentration last week was to talk about the cycles with you. Right here, I told you because we were 3 weeks down, I was looking for a bounce. The only thing that I didn't like is that we closed at the lows and we didn't have like a flush low. We really didn't see a flush low. We actually seen kind of like a double bottom, but we did get the bounce based off of the cycles of 2 to 3 weeks down, one bounce up. Going forward, what I would tell you right now is that it looks really good if we can get back above the gray box. I'm not sure exactly where we're trading at the moment. I can open up my Robinhood and take a look at Bitcoin really quickly. Give me 1 second. And it looks like here is trading at 111,191. I don't know, this shows that it's up. So that's where it gets a little confusing for me when I'm looking at Robinhood. Let's see. Yeah. But anyways, let's look at it from the gray box here. If we can get back above the gray box of 114, things look really good. And I think we can move up to 116, and then you're looking at 119, and then back to possibly 123. But as long as we're in the gray box and inside this cloud, I expect the conditions to continue to be choppy. Again, over 114, I feel pretty bullish. All right. So remember, the big picture for me, though, is to continue looking at the quarterly. This is what it looks like. I still, last week it changed quite a bit. We talked about that, but now after 1 week, the green arrow is back on here. Things are looking really bullish. And really, my overall tone for the entire market is we got this thing that we call the three white soldiers. So when looking at the quarterly candles, this is what we're seeing across the board in most, ES, NASDAQ, so forth. So I'm looking at this happening into the end of 2025 as long as this quarterly can close like this. So again, when we see this, then I'm projecting that we possibly see a move like this. This will be super extended. This will lead us going into 2026, pretty extended, just like we started the year in 2025. Okay. But again, I'll do my projections at the end of this year, guys. This has been a beautiful year. I hope you're doing amazing. It's September the 7th. We only have like 4 months left until the end of the year. I can't believe it. A lot of awesome stuff going on. And again, I can't wait to trade with you. Be ready. Have your notepads ready. Make sure you got everything sharpened and ready to go. 1 hour and a half before the market opens. We'll see you live. Have a good one.